Well, we will not be covering Donald Trump's third term. Donald Trump will not serve a third term. Donald Trump will not run for a third term. Donald Trump's name will not appear on a presidential ballot in any state. So we won't be covering the third term. And we won't be talking about the possibility of a third term because it's impossible. But Donald Trump wants us to talk about him running for a third term because it will distract from the Epstein files and it will distract from the cruelty he is imposing on all fronts, foreign and domestic. Donald Trump taunted our first guest tonight with the idea of a third term in a meeting in the Oval Office when he offered Democratic leader of the House of Representatives Hakeem Jeffries a Trump 2028 hat and nothing else. And that is when the discussion was supposed to be about how do we solve and prevent a government shutdown, and Donald Trump instead played with hats. That's the story Donald Trump wanted out there that day, the 2028 hat, instead of what was happening because of his shutdown of the government. And so every time Donald Trump says something insane about a third term, this program will devote no time to that subject. And we're not the only ones who don't want to hear about that subject that was a complete waste of time. The Republican Speaker of the House made it very clear today that he fears the Trump third term. Speaker Mike Johnson made it clear that he doesn't fear Donald Trump actually serving a third term because the Speaker said today that that is impossible, and the Speaker is right. What Speaker Johnson really tried to do today was to stop the public talk of the madness of a third term for Donald Trump, because the Speaker obviously believes that the more crazy Trump and crazy Republican talk there is in Washington about Donald Trump serving a third term, the worse it is for Republicans trying to get reelected to the House of Representatives next year. The number one job of a Republican Speaker of the House is to hold on to the House. That's it. To hold on to the Republican majority in the House. For a Republican Speaker, holding on to power comes first, and any attempt at any form of governing comes in a distant second. And so Mike Johnson believed that he had to say this today as part of his strategy for Republicans to keep control of the House of Representatives.
The Trump 2028 cap is one of the most popular that's ever been produced, and he has a good time with that, trolling the Democrats whose hair is on fire about the very prospect. But I do believe that we've got 3 extraordinary years ahead of us, and the 2 years of the Trump administration are going to be an incredible thing. And I don't see a way to amend the Constitution because it takes about 10 years to do that, as you all know, to allow all the states to ratify what 2/3 of the House and 3/4 of the states would approve. So I don't see the path for that.
So there's a Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives who believes the more talk there is about Donald Trump serving a third term, the more likely it is that our first guest tonight, Hakeem Jeffries, will be the next Speaker of the House. Republicans in the House of Representatives have been granted the longest vacation ever offered by a Speaker of the House during a government shutdown, caused by those same Republicans. House Speaker Mike Johnson has rewarded House Republicans for shutting down the government by giving them a permanent paid vacation that is now in its 6th week and may go on for months. Mike Johnson sent them on vacation more than a week before the government shut down, which is now in its 28th day of shutdown. They've had more vacation this year than most Americans get in 3 years. Republican members of the House have not done 1 day of work since Mike Johnson led them to shut down the government. And today in a conference call, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene once again became the Republican voice of reason about the Republican government shutdown. A Republican source who was on the conference call tells NBC News, quote, Greene accused her party of letting the country down. Greene also argued That Republican shutdown strategy has angered the American people and hurt Trump's popularity. Johnson, who was leading the call, pushed back on Green. He argued that Republicans are working day and night on a health care solution and that conversations on the expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies are ongoing. But Marjorie Taylor Greene took to social media after that conference call and said this: "I have no respect for the House not being in session passing our bills. And I demanded to know from Speaker Johnson what the Republican plan for health care is to build the off-ramp off Obamacare and the ACA tax credits to make health insurance affordable for Americans." Johnson said he's got ideas and pages of policy ideas and committees of jurisdiction are working on it, but he refused to give one policy proposal to our GOP conference on our own conference call. Apparently, I have to go into a SCIF to find out the Republican health care plan. During Donald Trump's first presidency, Donald Trump said repeatedly that the Trump Republican health care plan would be released next week. Those were his words, next week. Next week became the week that never came. There is no Republican health care plan. Mike Johnson has no pages about that. None. There has never been a Republican health care plan in the 21st century in Congress. There never will be a Republican health care plan in Congress. Mike Johnson knows that. Marjorie Taylor Greene knows that. Every Republican in the House of Representatives knows that. Every Republican senator knows that. There are exactly 2 Republican senators currently serving who ever saw a Republican health care bill introduced in Congress. It was introduced in 1994 by Rhode Island's Republican Senator John Chafee, and it was prevented from ever coming to a vote in the Senate by the Senate Republicans, who then included Senator Mitch McConnell and Senator Chuck Grassley. They are the last 2 working Republican senators who ever saw a Republican health care bill introduced in the Senate, and only introduced because they killed it. Mitch McConnell, Chuck Grassley, and all the other Republican senators killed the Republican Senate health care bill. That Republican health care bill, introduced by Senator Chafee, was proposed as a Republican counter to President Bill Clinton's health care bill. And the Republicans in the Senate killed both of them. That's what Republicans do to health care legislation. They kill it. If it were up to Republicans, there would be no Medicare, there would be no Medicaid, there would be no Affordable Care Act, there would be no health care beneficiaries in America whose health care benefits derive in any way from the federal government. And now Republicans are choosing to dramatically increase the costs of health care for people participating in Obamacare because Republicans hate Obamacare. Republicans want to kill it. Donald Trump wants to kill it. Republicans led by Donald Trump tried to kill it during the first Trump presidency. And the only reason Obamacare still exists is because Democrats in the House and the Senate stayed 100% united in preserving Obamacare during the first Trump presidency. And they were joined just in one crucial vote in the Senate by Republican Senator John McCain, whose vote was the vote that saved Obamacare. And that's the same John McCain who voted against Obamacare like every other Republican when President Obama's Affordable Care Act passed the Senate to become law. John McCain tried to kill it the first time when President Obama was getting it through the Senate. But in what John McCain knew were his final days as a senator and his final days of life, he decided he would cast that one vote, the one vote of his life, in favor of health care, supporting health care. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps, was created in a compromise between Republican Senator Bob Dole and then the most liberal member of the United States Senate at the time, Democrat Senator George McGovern. Bob Dole's support of food stamps was the most honorable thing he ever did as a United States Senator. Some other Republicans hated Bob Dole for supporting food stamps. Republican Newt Gingrich accused Bob Dole of being an enabler of the welfare state. And Newt Gingrich's view eventually became the dominant view of the Republican Party. And the view that Republicans live by today, which is if you are hungry in America, it is your fault. If you cannot afford food in America, you do not deserve any government assistance. That's the Republican view. So even though the Department of Agriculture, where the food stamp program originated because Bob Dole of Kansas saw it as an important market for the agricultural products for his state, even though the Agriculture Department has enough money to continue to fund food stamps during the government shutdown, Donald Trump is ordering them not to fund food stamps. Donald Trump is ordering the Agriculture Department to not use any of the emergency funding that they have available specifically to continue to fund food stamps. That's the legal intention of the emergency funding that the Agriculture Department has. And that is why states are suing Donald Trump for blocking the funding of food stamps, because they believe correctly that it is illegal to block that funding, even during the government shutdown. They believe Donald Trump is breaking the law again. And so, after beginning the year by allowing the richest person in the world, Elon Musk, to shut down the United States Agency for International Development and thereby take American food supplies away from starving children in the middle of famine in Africa, and creating a situation that Bill Gates called, quote, the world's richest man killing the world's poorest children, Republicans have chosen to bring the spirit of that policy home and take the food away from the children who depend on those food stamp benefits. 40% of the people fed by the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program are children. 40%. Donald Trump and Republicans don't want them to have that food during this government shutdown. Donald Trump and Republican senators and congressmen are basically saying, let them starve, if that's what it comes to. Now, they would never use the word starve, of course, but that is the word they use when they're feeling that they haven't had dinner soon enough. They'll say, I'm starving. We've all said it, and we've never meant it. And now we are on the verge, for the first time in the 21st century, of millions of people in America and children in America actually knowing what starving feels like. Republicans did this. And Republicans have given us what our first guest tonight calls the Republican healthcare crisis.
We have to address the Republican healthcare crisis and the fact that on November 1st, just a few days from now, open enrollment will begin and reality will strike for tens of millions of Americans who receive their health insurance, both from the Affordable Care Act tax credits and beyond, that their health care costs are about to skyrocket, in some cases increase by $10,000 per year, $15,000 per year, more than $20,000 a year. These are working class Americans who are about to be hit with these dramatic increases that they cannot afford.